Now, more figures were released this week from the latest census, and for the first time ever, more people under 40 in England and Wales now declare no religion than say they are Christian. The figures also suggest that more than half of people in their 20s have no religion. Some campaigners for non-religious people say that the figures show that we face a future without faith. Today we ask, is Britain better off without God? Joining us to discuss this are Elder Juanita Francis, who is one of the pastors from Ruach City Church here in London, Andrew Copson from Humanists UK, Imam Ajmal Masroor, and Rabbi Jonathan Romain. Good to see you all. Thanks for coming in. Andrew, I'll get straight in with that question. Is Britain better off without God?
Well, I think better off is a pretty extreme way of putting it. I mean, there's obviously now, and we know, millions of people who are doing good, being happy, finding purpose, seeking truth, living meaningful lives without religion. And I think that's great, and I support that. In the course of my work, I do meet people who've gone from being religious to non-religious and have found themselves better off. Maybe they find it's given them a better moral framework not to have a religion. Maybe they find it's given them a better sense of themselves, their place in the universe, not to have a religion. And so I think that's definitely, progress for those people. But of course, ultimately, I believe in a free society where people can find religion or not find religion.
But what about the broader society? Having God or no God, what do you think? Because God is in the fabric of this nation.
In many ways, that's true. I mean, if you take a step back and look at the world, it's certainly true that countries that are more religious don't do as well. They don't have such good social welfare. They're not as peaceful. They have worse levels of health. In America, the more religious states in the United States of America have more teenage pregnancy and more STIs than the less religious ones, and more crime and so on. So I think you could make an argument on that big level that the more non-religious the world becomes, the more peaceful it becomes. But then that's very provocative to people of religious faith, so I don't want to make that argument too strong, although I think there is a lot of evidence for it.
Well, Juanita, that's quite provocative, but when you look at the figures, things are declining when it comes to religion.
I think, to be honest, you have to actually work out who was drawn from those figures, because I think one of the things that I've recognised about census is who's actually taking those censuses. And I think if you think about a lot of the young people these days, a lot of them are not signing up to those pages, they kind of rush through it. And when you look at also the statistics, a lot of it was framed from the Church of England. I come from a Pentecostal background, or what others may know as charismatic. So if we look at those types of churches, actually they're on the uprise, especially after the pandemic, because they were quite strategic in being present when obviously our country was going through crisis. So I think that I would say that, can we really rely on those statistics?
Yeah, I mean, the religion question on the census was voluntary. Ajmal, are you worried? I'll come to you in a minute, Rabbi. Are you worried about these figures? You're an imam. People aren't really interested in religion now.
I'm worried and I'm not worried in both ways. I'm worried that people are not finding religion meaningful for them anymore. Perhaps it's the failure of the religious communities from presenting a religion that would be acceptable or at least understandable to them. From an Islamic perspective, we don't see the same as the statistics indicate. We see larger number of congregation in our mosques. More mosques are opening up and down the country. In fact, where I live, I've just opened a mosque only 2 weeks ago. Officially opened our mosque in Southgate. So when you look at the other faith communities, the picture is very different, because the concept of God and religion is very different for us. An example, God is not an outside entity. In our scripture, God is not somebody who went to sleep on a Sunday and gave us a rest. It's not like that. God is present every day. God is the one who enables us to have a good life on this earth. We are responsible for our life on this earth. Secondly, believing in God and having a religion gives a framework, a moral framework that becomes universal, not just individualistic, but it enables humanity to connect. And finally, it enables your soul to be fed well, not just your physical body. It gives you mental health well-being. It enables you to live a wholesome life. So for a Muslim, God is center of everything, and we would like God to be center of everybody in the world. Of course, that's not possible, I understand. But that's a proposition.
Rabbi Romain, I saw it every so often. I hear you breathing as if you're about to chip in. And you've got lots to say, haven't you?
Well, I think it's a bit of a cheat, to be honest, to blame the stats, because I think the census is very good at tracing trends over 10-year periods. But I'm not too worried about the figures. I tell you why, because I think we've moved away from a society where it's thou shalt, you have to believe. I think religion has become one of many options, and it is a beneficial option. You can be perfectly happy and moral as a humanist. But I think if you have a faith, you've got two big advantages. On a personal level, it can answer some of those really big questions. Who am I? Where am I going in life? What's the point? What's happening? Where do I fit in? And on a wider level, it offers structures, it offers weekly gatherings, cycle of life rituals, and perhaps most importantly of all, a place where you belong, where you feel valued, and when you don't go where you're missed. And there's no doubt that people still need rituals and spirituality, because, I mean, look at the roadsides, and we have all these flowers by roadside accident, or vigils when there's a crisis. And even if they're not turning to the church anymore, they're turning to other faiths, whether it's Eastern faiths or paganism. So there's still that need for those who so wish.
Some people are doing that, but I think all the things we've just heard, community, meaningful activities, purpose, structure, rituals, morality, they're all provided also for non-religious people, but in other ways.
Well, when you look at food banks, 50% of food banks are Christian. I mean,
three-quarters of our charities in this country are secular. So, I mean, you can look at it whichever way you want.
I want to get to social media comment. I'll put this to you, Juanita. So Jasvir has said, has emailed us to say there has been an explosion in Sikhs practising the faith since around 2010, when Sikh education groups began using the internet to teach about the faith. Is Christianity lagging behind? I mean, you talk about the Church of England lagging behind, and that's true. Other religions, because they're not embracing the modern world.
I would actually say that some church institutions probably could do a bit better with getting more involved with what is our current world, social media, internet. I mean, obviously, there are some religious groups that are doing well. Like, for example, we were probably one of the first headlining churches to start streaming the services. So when it meant that the pandemic happened and most churches could no longer function, we were able to function fine because we had the actual streaming capabilities to continue. So I think, yes, it would be wrong to say that we don't need to include our world in terms of experiencing and taking in social media.
Yeah, and during lockdown, Andrew, one of the most Googled questions was how to pray. Now, that implies that maybe people are turning their back on religion, and young people use the internet disproportionately more than older people. They're turning their back on religion, but they still believe in a God.
There's some good statistics on this. So there's an analysis, follow-up questions through social surveys to the census, and obviously it finds that people who don't have religion, some of them do have still other types of belief, like they might be thinking about questions of God or purpose in a spiritual way, but most of them don't. And in fact, the same is true of people who have a religious box. Lots of people who say they're Christian don't believe in God. So, I mean, it's a complicated picture in terms of identity.
To redefine the word religion here. Religion, as it's understood, it's a church, a mosque, a defined code of life. For us, religion is a dynamic way of life, a conscious choice. It's not imposed. As a Muslim, I have to become Muslim consciously by understanding the concept. So if I was to say, I'm looking to pray, that is part of my life. If the word religion is a problem, let's call it way of life. There are many ways of lives in this world. Some of the ways of lives are doing well, others are not doing very well. So therefore, I think we should have a proliferation of ways of life. Let there be a free market. Let people discuss and debate. Let us all present our faith. Let people decide.
And God operates differently in different faiths. I mean, it's much more central in Christianity, whereas if you don't believe in God, then there's not much point of being a Christian. For Jews, I mean, my favourite saying is that to be a good Jew, you don't have to believe in God. You just have to do what he says. So it's getting on with it. It's to do with relationships and values and ethics and community.
I want to talk about faith schools, because I know you two don't agree on that. So many people have jumped on the census findings and said, well, that's it. There should be no faith schools. What's the point in them? Ajmal?
I'm a product of a faith school. And if you think I have done bad, I think you need to rethink. I have done very well in life because I believe my faith school has given me the foundation to be inclusive, to be powerful, to be confident about my identity, and to be socially as well as politically responsible. So faith school have a very good role to play, as long as it's not a dogmatic, brainwashing exercise. My faith school didn't do that. It taught me faith.
Well, you were lucky. You were lucky because a lot of faith schools
my model is faith schools based on faith teaching that makes you relevant, beneficial, and an active citizen.
OK, Jamal, we're running out of time, so Rabbi Romain.
Faith schools are a social disaster. They ghettoise children. Jews here, Muslims there, Sikhs here. They're dividing the children. It's almost like sort of religious apartheid. We wouldn't dream of doing it for swimming pools or or cinemas. And precisely because this is a multi-religious society, which is great, we don't want to make it a multi-fractious society where children of different faiths grow up not knowing each other. And of course, it's not just the children, it's the parents who don't meet outside the school gate at the parents' evening. So it cuts a huge swathe through society. And I'm very religious. I believe in faith, but not faith schools, which is why I sent my children not to a faith school, but to a community school, so they could sit next to a Christian, do homework with a Hindu, walk home with a Muslim, get homework with an atheist, and that way they know each other better, they know my children, and I think if we want an open, tolerant society, we have to have an open, tolerant educational system that produces it.
What makes you think faith school can't do that? That's the biggest debate. Faith school has the capacity to provide that model.
Some.
Yeah,
Okay,
but we need to obviously look at that as well.
Okay, Juanita.
I would definitely disagree. I went to a faith school, and I think to say that it's going to affect how you relate to other people is to almost say that you're going to be completely removed from your community. Though you go to a faith school, it doesn't mean you don't see people in a shop, you don't see people in a neighbourhood, in an environment.
What did Jesus say? Jesus said, suffer the little children. He didn't say segregate them.
What I'm saying is, I would say that irrespective of whether you go to a faith school or not, for me, my experience in a faith school was actually very good, and I agree with him. I was a product of a faith school, and I would say even in the school itself, in the system, it gives you good morals, it teaches you how to relate to people, and a lot of the foundations that we may want to throw away are actually what makes us have good characters.
Yeah, I mean, and to be fair, there are a range of faith schools. There are some that maybe are more like the ghetto that you say, but there are others which teach a broad understanding.
And vast majority
I don't want to just stick to faith schools.
But the state schools also do miserably bad as well. Don't forget that.
Andrew, so we've got a coronation for the king coming up. He's religious. The coronation will be religious. It's actually impossible to separate God from society, isn't it?
What we have in this country is a situation where our state and a lot of our social institutions developed when everyone was either Christian or couldn't be anything else, was told they were Christian, had to be Christian even if they weren't. I think what we need as we come to a situation where that's no longer the case, we have a plural society where most people aren't religious, but there are many people of different religions, is that our state and all its institutions, including schools, should model that openness. So it's all very well saying I went to a faith school and it was all right for me, but should there be schools in our society that choose people on religious grounds? Should there be institutions, even the monarchy, that say this religion is the top religion and all the others are somehow subsidiary? I don't think there should. If we're to move forward, not just into a non-religious future, but a fair and open future, I think we need to put away a lot of the, not Christianity of the past, but Christian privilege of the past, and that's what I would like to see.
OK, I'm afraid we're out of time. It's good to talk to you. And just like society, we have lots of religions, we have lots of views in the studio, Holly.
Yeah, a lot of views here, and as you can imagine, a lot of views at home as well. Lots of you have been getting in touch on social media, including Kate. She was on Facebook saying, definitely not. When all else fails, there is only one place to turn, God. My prayers were answered so many times. On the other hand, Anthony was on Facebook too, and he says, get rid of all religions and therefore gods, and you will get rid of most wars. Conflicting views there too. Thank you so much for sharing your thoughts with us. We always love hearing from you.